The story that you are about to hear is a compilation of documented true facts, featuring characters, events, or places that has played a role in shaping history. Please sit back and listen as I recite this narrative for you. Stephanie Saint-Clair is one of the most notorious crime mob bosses during the Harlem Renaissance, who ran numerous criminal enterprises in New York during the early 20th century. Saint-Clair resisted the mafia's interest for several years after Prohibition ended. She continued to be an independent operator and never came under mafia control. She ran a successful numbers game in Harlem and was an activist for the Black community. Her nicknames included Queenie, Madam Queen, Madame Saint-Clair, and Queen of the Policy Rackets. Madame Saint-Clair was born on December 24, 1897 to parents with mixed French and African descent in Moule-Grande-Terre, French West Indies. She was reared by her single mother, Felicienne, who sacrificed much to ensure the upbringing of her daughter. She worked hard so that her daughter will be educated and have a better life. Unfortunately, at 15, when her mother fell ill, she was forced to stop school in order to make money and survived. She worked as a housemaid for a rich French family in Martinique and was constantly sexually abused by the son of the house. She managed to save some money and, after the death of her mother, finally left Guadeloupe for Montreal. She was able to leave the Caribbean and move to France. On July 31, 1912, she arrived in Harlem after leaving France on the SS de Guiana ship in 1911, learning English while making the trip to the US. Being multilingual in French, Spanish, and English strongly aided Saint-Clair in furthering her educational, personal, and professional development. In Harlem, she fell in love with a small-time crook Duke who soon tried to prostitute her. She returned to New York, learning that Duke had been shot in a fight between gangs. After 4 months, she decided to start her own business selling controlled drugs with the help of her new boyfriend, Ed. After a few months, she had made $30,000 and told Ed she wanted to leave him and start her own business. Ed tried to strangle her and she pushed him away with such force that he cracked his skull against a table and died. For months afterwards, she employed her own man, bribed cops, and on April 12, 1917, invested $10,000 of her own money in a clandestine lottery game in Harlem. As a result of her success running one of the leading numbers games in the city, she became known throughout Manhattan as Queenie for being tall and fashionably dressed, but Harlem residents referred to her as Madame Saint-Clair. She was involved in policy banking, which is a mixture of investing, gambling, and playing the lottery. Many banks at this time would not accept Black customers, so they were not able to invest legally. Policy banking wasn't technically legal, but it was one of the few options offered to Black Harlem residents who wished to invest their money. It was also a predominantly Black industry, which allowed many bankers to have a sense of agency that would not be possible in white-dominated fields. In this way, she used the underground economy in Harlem to address race politics. At this time, the numbers game in Harlem was male-dominated, and Saint-Clair was one of the only women involved. Saint-Clair helped the Black community in Harlem by providing many with jobs as numbers runners and other jobs within her business. She also helped her community by donating money to programs that promoted racial progress. Because of her success in the numbers game, she lived a lavish life, making over $20,000 a year in the 1920s. Saint-Clair controlled the underground business in Harlem and could not be defeated by her rivals or even the police. She is known to have killed one of her partners after he refused to end the relationship and shooting another as well. She sold controlled drugs and alcohol at the time of its ban between 1920 and 1933. She was known to put out ads in the local newspapers educating the Harlem community about their legal rights, advocating for voting rights, and calling out police brutality against the Black community. Several times, she complained to local authorities about harassment by the police. When they paid no heed, she ran advertisements in Harlem newspapers accusing senior police officers of corruption. The police responded by arresting her on a trumped-up charge, and she spent 8 months in a workhouse. In response, she testified to the Seabury Commission about the kickbacks she had paid police officers and those who had participated in the Harlem numbers game. The commission subsequently fired more than a dozen police officers. After the end of Prohibition, Jewish and Italian-American crime families saw a decrease in profits and decided to move in on the Harlem gambling scene. Bronx-based mob boss Dutch Schultz was the first to move in, beating and killing numerous operators who would not pay him protection. Believing that she would eventually break because she was a woman, Schultz made sure to terrorize Stephanie by attacking her gambling clubs, kidnapping and killing a few of her workers, and locking her sales. Saint-Clair and her chief enforcer, Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson, refused to pay protection to Schultz despite the violence and intimidation by police they faced. Saint-Clair responded by attacking the storefronts of businesses that ran Dutch Schultz betting operations and tipping off the police about him. This resulted in the police raiding his house, arresting more than a dozen of his employees, and seizing approximately $12 million, about $172 million in 2019 currency. Saint-Clair never submitted to Dutch Schultz like many others in Harlem eventually did. After Saint-Clair's struggles with Schultz, she had to become legitimate and stay away from the police, so she passed on her criminal businesses to Bumpy Johnson. Eventually, her former enforcer negotiated with Lucky Luciano, and Lucky took over Schultz's spots with a percentage going to Bumpy. The Italians then had to go to Bumpy first if they had any problems in Harlem. Luciano realized that the struggle with the five families was hurting their business, so Schultz was assassinated in 1935 on the orders of the commission. Although Saint-Clair was not involved with his murder, she was remembered for sending an infamous telegram to his bed that stated, "As ye sow, so shall ye reap." The telegram reportedly made headlines across the nation. By the 1940s, Bumpy Johnson had become the reigning king in Harlem, while Saint-Clair became less and less involved in the numbers game. After Saint-Clair retired from the numbers game, she started a new era of her life as an advocate for political reform. In the late 1930s, Saint-Clair met her husband, Sufi Abdul Hamid, known as the Black Hitler for his anti-Semitic Nazi fashion of activism. Hamid was a militant activist and was the leader of an Islamic Buddhist cult. Saint-Clair and Hamid's marriage went downhill quickly when he started cheating with a black fortune teller known as Fu Fatam. Hamid would go on to marry Fatam, real name Dorothy Matthews, and they founded a Buddhist temple together. Hamid and Fatam or Matthews attempted to open a business with Saint-Clair's money, and their marriage officially ended in 1938 when Hamid was shot. Saint-Clair was charged for shooting at him and spent 10 years in the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility for Women in New York. After she was released from prison, Saint-Clair continued her work in informing those in the community of their civil liberties. She continued to write columns in the local newspaper about discrimination, police brutality, illegal search raids, and other issues facing the black community. She died quietly and still wealthy in 1969, shortly before her 73rd birthday. Bumpy Johnson, who had come back to live with her and to write poetry, had died 1 year earlier. Hi, this is Twisted Mind. Quick question for you. Do you like reading romantic stories? If so, in the description box below is a link to an app called Dreame that features a writer under the pseudonym of Annabel Lee. Please click and follow her. Thank you. Hey everyone! I just wanted to express how grateful I am that you took the time to listen to my narration. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I am Twisted Mind, and please enjoy the rest of your day. Salamat!